Bible prophecy can be interesting if you get to see Jesus interacting with celestial beings. In this chapter, chapter 8 of Daniel, Daniel is given a vision about some of the same beasts seen in chapter 7. We will also read about Gabriel asking Jesus about the people of God and how long they will be trampled underfoot, how long they will endure persecution from the evil powers. We will get a view of a beast that will appear at the end of the world that will be known as was and is not, yet is. Let's read this chapter using the parallel text method and see what we see. So let's look at the iPad. I'm going to put a mark, but before we start, let's be sure that we understand that it's important to have God with us. Let's pray. Father, please bless us today with your presence. We need you right now to help us see and understand. Bless us with your power. Enable us to hear and obey. And we give you thanks, Lord, for all that you do for us. You are amazing. You're full of love and protection. Thank you for that, Lord. Please bless us at this time. By the way, the title is, Why is Gabriel Asking Jesus About the Time of the End? So we're going to go back to our iPad, and I'm going to put a mark right where we're starting. And what you'll notice is that the book of Daniel, we're told, is in parallel text. So we're going to go across from here to here. That will be our horizontal line. And then as we go to the next picture, we'll see the next verse and the next. And as you can see, what we're doing is we're going horizontal. So let's go back to where we were, and we'll understand it better. We're looking at the parallel text, and we're going horizontal with the verses. So here's the first verse. It says, In the 3rd year of the reign of Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even to me Daniel, after that which appeared to me at the first. And I saw in a vision, it came to pass, when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, I was by the river Ulai, then lifted up mine eyes, and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns. Going to the next verse, which is in the parallel, just to the right, verse 3. And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could be delivered out of his hand. But he did according to his will, and became great. So we're talking about the ram. Verse 5. I was considering, behold, a he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, touched not the ground. So it's pretty fast, okay? And the goat, a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. So let's go to the next picture. And here it is. 7. I saw him come close to the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him. But he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. The he-goat's pretty strong. Then we go to the next verse. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great. Still talking about him. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken. For it came up 4 notable ones, or toward or by the 4 winds of heaven. So we get to verse 9. And out of one of them, talking about the winds, came forth a little horn, okay, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, the east, toward the pleasant land. And it, actually she, became great even to the army of heaven, and it, or she, cast down to the ground from the army and the stars, and trampled them. Okay, so it wasn't very nice against the stars of heaven, which would be the angels, or the people of God. Verse 11, and even to the ruler of the army, he magnified himself, and from him was exalted the continuance in rebellion, and was cast down in the place of his sanctuary. 12, and an army was given her, actually, by the continuance in rebellion, and she cast down the truth to the ground. All right, so here we have verse 12. It finishes the vision, and then we go to verse 13. There's this interesting question. When I heard one saint speaking, another said to that certain saint, or Palmoni, which spake, How long shall be the vision? concerning the daily sacrifice. So we're talking about the daily. And the transgression of desolation. So I'm going to put TOD. To give both the sanctuary and the host to be what? Trodden under foot. How long will the daily and the transgression of desolation trample underfoot the sanctuary and host? This is asked by Gabriel. Let's look at the next picture. And it says, and she achieved and prospered. So we know that finished off verse 12. But the answer was given by this person called Palmoni, the wonderful number, who we think is Jesus. He says, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. So let's go on. So we're going to go back up to the beginning here. And the next verse is verse 15. And it came to pass, when I, even Daniel, had seen the vision, sought for the meaning, and behold, there stood before me as an appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Eli, which called, said, Gabriel, now we know who asked the question, make this man to understand the vision. So it's probably Jesus asking Gabriel. So he came near to where I stood, and when he came I was afraid, and fell upon my face. And he said unto me, understand, O son of man, for the time of the end shall be the vision. So what's he say? The time of the end shall be the vision. Now as he was speaking with me, I was in deep sleep on my face toward the ground, but he touched me, and I sat upright. And he said, behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last what? Ahadit, the end of the Zaim, or of sin. The last end of sin. For the time appointed, the Moed Kez shall be. So he said 1, 2, 3 times it would be at the time of the end. He said the Ed Kez, so we got that one, that's here. He said the last, the Ahadit of the indignation, and then the third time was the time appointed, the end shall be. All right, so now we're ready for verse 20, the interpretation. So here we have something going on between Gabriel and Jesus, telling us about when this will occur. And that's when Gabriel tells Daniel, okay, it's going to be the time of the end, 1, the Ahadit, Zayim, and then the Moed Kez. All right, so then we come to the interpretation. He says, the ram, which thou sawest having 2 hands, are the kings of Media Persia. So that's the first one. So here's the ram, right up here, and it was Media Persia. Okay, so we got that one. And the rough goat is the king of Grecia. Well, here's the he-goat, and he was the great horn. It says the rough goat is the king of Grecia. The great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. We know that's Alexander. Now here comes an interesting verse, verse 22. And that being broken, stand up, do 4 in its place. 4 kingdoms for the nation do stand up, but none in its power. So we don't see anything down here. This is where it should be. So we have to go to the next picture, and the next picture is here, verse 23. And it says, in the latter time of their kingdom, we're talking about the 4 kingdoms that stood from the Goy, which is the Gentiles, okay? In the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, that is, at the time of the end, a king of fierce countenance, understanding dark sentences, shall stand up, and mighty is his power, but not in his own power, and marvelously he shall destroy, and he shall prosper and achieve. And here's an interesting one. He shall destroy the mighty and holy people. By his skill he will cause deceit to prosper in his hand. In his own heart he will magnify himself, and in security, a time of peace, he shall destroy many. And against the ruler of rulers he shall stand up. Without a hand he shall be broken. So then Daniel finishes his time. And the vision of the evening and morning which was is true. Wherefore shut up the vision, for it shall be for many days. 27. And I, Daniel, fainted and was sick certain days. Afterwards I stood up into the king's business. I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. So here we are looking at something that we've tried to put into a parallel, horizontal. We've got the vision. We see that. Then there's kind of a question. And then we see kind of an explanation how he's talking about this is at the time of the end. And then he tells us that the ram was Media Persia, the he-goat was Greece. So then who was the little horn? So we're going to take a look at that. So let's go to that. Which beast is the little horn? In Daniel 8, 9-12. Out of one of them come forth a little horn. So we're talking about out of the winds, okay, came this little horn, okay? All right, so how many winds were there? Well, we found out that there was 4. And it says, a little horn, that is feminine, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, toward the east, toward the pleasant land. And she became great even to the army of heavens. And she cast down to the ground from the army and from the stars, and she trampled them. Well, we just learned that when Gabriel asked the question. He says, what's going on here? Well, there's the daily, and then there's transgression of desolation, and they are going to trample on the temple of God and his host, his army. That's what's being described here, all right? And then it says, verse 11, even to the ruler of the army of heaven, he magnified himself, and from him it was exalted the continuance. So this is what he's doing with the continuance, otherwise known as the daily. We think that the daily is what happened in the temple of Satan, that he was saying, this is important. These are the things that are important. So we look at it and we say that's paganism. Well, paganism means that you erect an image, just like in Daniel 2, just like we read about or understood from the 4 kings and then the 5th one that was seen in Daniel 7. So here we are looking in Daniel 8, and we're understanding that the daily was exalted. That means to be lifted up. It doesn't mean to say that it's thrown out. It isn't. All right. And then the very next one, it says, and he, or it, was cast down in the place of his sanctuary. To be cast down in the place of your sanctuary doesn't make sense. When we look at this, there's a date that really stands out, 1798. It was the time that the Pope was deposed in Rome by a French general, and he took him into captivity. And that, we believe, is the mortal wound that happened to the Catholic Church. But it didn't kill the Catholic Church, because what you see in verse 12, and an army was given her, because that's what's there, by the continuance in rebellion, and she cast down the truth to the ground. So here you have the little horn. She will be given an army. What do you do with an army? What does a religious power do with an army? That doesn't make sense. There seems to be something happening that this little horn is given something special. So if you go on and consider the beast that came from Revelation 12, 13, and 17, in Daniel 7, we learned about the lion, the bear, the leopard, the dreadful beast, the little horn. We knew their names were Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, pagan Rome, and papal Rome. Well, here in number 8, we were told about Medo-Persia and Greece, and then we were told about the little horn, which is papal Rome. So when you go to actual Revelation, we're told about the red dragon, we think it's pagan Rome. We're told about the composite beast, and that's papal Rome. We're told about the lamb-like beast, and that's the United States, and the image to the beast, which is the New World Order. If we put the lists of Daniel 7 and Revelation 12 and 13 together, we get this. We have Daniel 7 here, and then we have Revelation 12 and 13. Got the lion, bear, leopard, dreaded beast, little horn. Then you have the red dragon, composite beast, lamb-like beast, an image to the beast. But what's interesting is that right here, pagan Rome is mentioned in both Daniel and Revelation. Papal Rome is mentioned in Daniel 7 and in Revelation. So when you put these two together, you can come up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now we need to take something important. Revelation 17:10. There are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the what? 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth to perdition. When you take the 5 are fallen, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the ones that are fallen. They've had a kingdom, and it's lasted for a while. Then it says one is, and the one that pops up here is the United States. That's number 6. But one is coming. One not yet come, and that's the image to the beast, or the New World Order. So when you go through these 7, easy to see. Then it tells us in Revelation 17:11 that the beast that was and is not, he is the 8th. So who is that? So now we have Gabriel asking us a question. So we've just considered the little horn. Now we're looking at why is Gabriel asking a question. What does he ask? How long will be the vision? So he's talking about time, okay? Concerning the daily, so we got, you remember what we did before, the daily, and the transgression of desolation, that's T of D, to trample the sanctuary of God and the host. Those are the people of God. How long is evil going to trample on the sanctuary and the host? And what he says is 2,300 days. Then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. On Yom Kippur, the day of judgment, is when the sanctuary was cleansed. The way it was cleansed was with blood. Okay, so he's saying in 2,300 days, the sanctuary will be cleansed. Well, the sanctuary only came once out of 365 days. So when you look at that once, these days is 2,300 sanctuary cleansings, and that would be equal to 2,300 years, which is really important, and we're going to learn that more next time we look at it. So let's go on to the next issue. So when is the time of the end? It has to be near the time of the 2,300 cleansing. And it says, when it came to pass, I, Daniel, the appearance of a man, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. How is he going to understand it? He came near to me where I stood. He was afraid. I fell on my face. But he said, understand, O Son of Man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Time of the end. And then he says down here in 19, behold, I will make thee know that it shall be in the last end of the indignation. So it's the last end of the indignation. Then he says, for at the time appointed the end shall be. That's the Moed Kes. 3 times he tells them the time of the end, the last end, the Moed Kes. When is the time of the end? It happens at the end of time. So when we were looking at Revelation 17:10, we were looking at the 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come. What we were looking at and trying to understand is that we were shown in this vision 8, Medo-Persia, Greece, and then we were shown Papal Rome. And what was the next thing we saw? I don't think it's the United States. I don't think it's the New World Order. I think it's the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th. So who would that be? In the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance, understanding dark senses, shall stand up. He'll be mighty in his power. He shall marvelously destroy. He shall prosper and achieve. And here's this incredibly interesting one. He's going to destroy the mighty and holy people. I think you can find an answer to that in Revelation 11, but that's just a hint. And by his skill he will cause deceit to prosper in his hand. And in his own heart he will magnify himself, and in security he shall destroy many. Against the ruler of rulers, which would be Jesus, he shall stand up, but without a hand he shall be broken. Daniel 8 is an incredible vision. We see Daniel seeing something he'd never seen before, a goat, a ram, and a he-goat. He says they're in a battle. He sees this he-goat win, but then it dies because the horn is gone. And then comes up out of the 4 winds this little horn. If those 7 kingdoms were Babylon, which was not mentioned, Medo-Persia, Greece, and then the other 4 with pagan Rome, Papal Rome, the United States, and the image to the beast, then we're seeing Papal Rome. But we didn't see the other 3. And then we're shown this next being that seems to be more powerful than any of them. So who would that be? Who is it that came in the Garden of Eden and destroyed a companionship between a man and a woman and their God? Who is it that came to Jesus when he was been fasting for 40 days? If you are the Son of God, would you please turn these stones into bread? It was Satan. We believe that this is a description of the time of the end when Satan will personate, will look like Christ. But it's not going to be for a long time. It's going to be et kes, aharit, zaim, moed kes. It's going to be at the time of the end. What's interesting is that in the next video, in Daniel 9, we're going to see how all of this seems to fit and what the time of the end may look like. Please share this with others. Please understand that we're trying to describe what seems to be hard to describe and make it understandable. Are there details that we should go over? Of course. But we're trying to get across this thing, is that I believe we're looking at the personage of Satan at the end of this chapter 8. He's described, and he's going to destroy the people of God. I've already given you a hint on that, and that's in Revelation 11. They're the two witnesses. So let's look at chapter 9 next time. We're going to try to just give you some information that I think that you'll find be helpful. And then right after that, we're going to go into Revelation 12, 13, and 17, and trying to understand what God wants us to know about the time of the end. We hope that this has blessed you, to help you understand that God's Word is really fun to study. But the other part is that He's in control. So in spite of everything, and these beasts fighting and so forth and so on, in the presence of Satan, that God will be with us and to help us to get through this. So until the next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.